Hi, my name's Noelle. I'm 28 years old. I've been sober for 3 years, and I've also been a member of AIR for 3 years. The reason I got involved in AIR is because I wanted to spread the message and raise awareness about alcoholism and addiction and recovery, because I never thought it was possible for a young person to be sober, for a young person to never drink or drug again. And it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm so much happier and I'm at so much more peace because I'm sober. So I want to spread my message, especially to the young people, because that's where it all begins. That's where it began for me. And I want to let them know that there's help out there if they need it. And I just want to share my story. So what we do is we gather a group of young people in recovery and we contact the schools so that we could come in and speak to the young people from middle school, from 6th grade to 12th grade in high school. And we just go and we share our stories. And we want to spread this to other communities so that we can continue raising awareness about recovery, alcoholism, addiction, and we want to talk to the kids and let them know that there's other young people that live a life that's in sobriety. And so we want other young people in recovery to be able to go into schools and share their message too.
My name's Chris. I'm from Allendale, New Jersey. I was born and raised there, and I still live there now. I'm 29 years old, and I've been sober since January of 2016. I started speaking with AIR about a year ago in the winter of 2017, and it's been one of the most fulfilling commitments in recovery that I've had the privilege of doing. Not only do we get to speak to high school students, but we also get to speak to parents as well, which is really rewarding, especially for me personally. I've been to a lot of funerals because of the disease of drug and alcohol addiction. So to not only be able to touch students whose shoes I was in not too long ago, but to be able to help parents as well is also equally as rewarding.
Hello, my name is Jerry. I was born and raised in Woodcliff Lake. I am Woodcliff Lake, New Jersey. I am 26 years old, and I am in long-term recovery of opiates. When Nancy approached me on the AIR program about AIR, it really intrigued me because I feel that there is a massive gap in the school system when I was going to school about what drug addiction is, what alcoholism is, what is sobriety, why are kids experimenting with drugs, why does it feel so good? And for the longest time, I remember I would always have this feeling of wanting more and more and more. And there were some friends of mine that could cut it back. I specifically remember a friend from college. He partied harder than anybody. And once when he graduated, he stopped cold turkey. And I was amazed.
Hi, I'm Steve. I'm 29 years old and I live in Woodridge, New Jersey. So let me tell you a little bit more about what recovery means to me. The primary aspect of recovery for me is service. It's doing things for others completely outside of personal benefit. You know, one of the main things I can do, this is what we're doing here. AIR itself is service. This is one of the main things that I like to do that helps me. It benefits me because it has nothing to do with me. And, so we go around and we talk to these students and we just give these students information. Most of them will never have to struggle with addiction, but we just give them the information so that they can recognize when problems start to crop up. Another main aspect of my recovery is surrounding myself with people that are like-minded, people that are like me, Other addicts in recovery, other alcoholics in recovery provide me with a support network so that when I need to talk about something or when I have a decision to make that I'm unsure of, I can run it by some other people and get out of my own self a little bit and get some better advice to benefit me.
I'm Kayla. I'm 23 years old. I'm from Teaneck, New Jersey. I'm a member of AIR and a 12-step fellowship, and I'm a member of AIR because I want to give back to kids, because when I was their age, I was running crazy. So I just want them to know that, you know, there's hope and we do recover and we can get better. And there's so many outlets for them to go to. There's us, there's 12 fellowships, there's their counselors. So we just want to help guide them and give them hope. So a really important thing that we like to talk about is the Good Samaritan law. And basically what that law is, if you're at a party or if you're somewhere with someone and someone overdoses, they're not feeling well, they're throwing up, they're turning blue, their lips are turning blue and they can't breathe, you can call the authorities. You can have them picked up by an ambulance and the cops, and you can't get in any trouble. That's been really important because before this law came about, a lot of people were dying. You know, people would be rolled out of their cars, left on a curb, left outside of a hospital. And this has helped to decrease the amount of overdose deaths and just accidents.
In high school, like, I wanted to fit in. You know, everybody wants to be popular, have friends, and do all those things. And sometimes, even if you have that, even if, I had that. I had a nice car when I was 17. My father bought me a brand new car. I was well taken care of, had nice clothes, had nice things, but that didn't change the way that I felt about myself. I still felt, I didn't feel good about myself from a long age. I didn't start feeling good about myself until I had a few years into recovery. I've been clean over 10 years. I got clean, I stopped using drugs at 23 years old. I'm 33 now. I'll be 34 in July. And the reality of it is that I feel very blessed and privileged and fortunate that I've been able to find recovery and stop using drugs one day at a time, right? And days turned into weeks, that turned into months, that turned into years, that turned into a decade. And I'm very, very proud of who I've become. That shame and that guilt, like, I'm no longer ashamed about who I am or the things that I did in my past. If they can help somebody else, everything that I went through was well worth it. And I don't want to die today. I want to live. I choose to live. I choose to live in recovery. I'm a member of a 12-step fellowship, which completely changed my life and gave me a desire to actually live, and not just exist. And that's what I was doing for many years. I was destroying myself with a chemical and not really seeing the damage that I was causing around me until I stopped using, and I looked back on all the destruction that I caused. And I felt so overwhelmed with where I was in my life that I didn't think I was going to be able to dig myself out of the hole that I put myself in. But I had other recovering addicts that were in my life that God placed in my life to really love me up and really build me back up to a place where I've started to feel good about myself. Because it's easy for me to say I believe in you, but it's hard for me to say that I believe in me. Then that's the thing. Like, I need to learn to believe in myself. In high school, like, I used a lot on the weekends. I mean, there were spurts through high school where I was smoking pot every single day, before school, after school, at lunchtime, coming to school high. I had friends, that were doing coke in the bathrooms in high school. You know what I mean? Like these are the people I surrounded myself with for many, many years of my life, and we all ended up going down a very, very dark path. It's so important to understand that, like, it's not, because on the news and in society, you only hear about the bad people, the people that are doing bad, the people that are killing themselves, the people that are dying. So we believe it's important to come out of the meetings that we go to, in the church basements that we go to, right, and get into the communities to give back and to, like, really bring awareness and, and just, have the courage to share ourselves with you guys. Maybe down the line you realize that you have a problem and somebody, or maybe you can, later this year, you find yourself in a place where you want to ask for help and you go see a teacher or a counselor, and start to learn to ask for help, because that's one of the things I couldn't do. I didn't want to ask for help. I didn't want to talk to a teacher, a counselor, my parents, but when I picked up alcohol and pot at 12 years old, I didn't know where it was going to lead me. I didn't know what the things I was going to have to do to get more drugs later down the road, and that's one of the really important things I think is important, that, like, even if you're just smoking pot or drinking on the weekends, potentially it could lead to harder drugs and lead you down a dark path and if I can hopefully instill something in one person or two people or three people or maybe all of you that will, help hopefully maybe get you back on the right path if you're heading down the wrong path. I think, it was well worth my time coming here and just, being able to share myself with you guys. So what I'm gonna do.
When you're speaking to the students and you tell your personal story, usually there's 3 presenters. One presenter will lead, and all 3 will share their story. But you want to share your story for about 10 to 15 minutes tops so that the students stay engaged. You also want to consider the age level and speak appropriately to the age level. Another point I want to make is to engage your audience. One thing that we like to do sometimes is ask them questions. Maybe ask them a question that they'll raise their hand. One question that we ask is, does anybody know anyone, a friend, a family member, a friend of a friend, whose life was affected by alcoholism and drugs? And the shocking thing is that usually every hand goes up.
So it's important to walk the students through the progression of drug and alcohol addiction. I feel like when I was in high school, the message was just say no. And that's kind of hard to relate to, especially when all your friends and everyone around you is trying drugs and drinking alcohol on the weekends. So just say no was like a tough thing to relate to. But when we can talk to these students honestly on a peer-to-peer level, and talk about things like how old we were when we first started drinking or getting high, and where were we, what were our surroundings, how did our friends feel when we were doing this. I know I had certain friends that would try drugs and say, that's not for me anymore, when I was the type of the person that I wanted to do it again the next day. So it's important to talk about the progression of how you went from someone who was just trying drugs and doing drugs and alcohol on the weekends socially to someone that began using it more frequently, and eventually as someone who was, like me, a 24/7 maintenance drug and alcohol user.
Through being an AIR member for the past 2 years, there's a couple of guidelines that we have to discuss, and there's a couple of things that we've learned through trial and error, like anything else, that we have to do. For example, cursing. There's no profanity when we're speaking at these schools. I'm the first to admit I've slipped in the past, and it forms an awkward situation. We cannot assume that they know what character defects are. We can't assume that they know what detox is. We can't assume that they know what a rehab is. We have to break it down and speak very simply about it. Now, granted, to us, it's second nature, but to them, it's like reading Chinese. They'll have no idea. So we really have to explain it well. And we can't go into too much detail about our bad behaviors. About, for example, myself, I would go to Patterson to pick up my dope. We're not telling these students these things. We are explaining that we went to bad areas to pick up these drugs, and it was very risky both for our safety and also getting arrested, and why primarily we were doing these things and risking our future because of the emotions behind it, because of the insecurities behind it. So that's the most important thing, or one of the most important things of being able to relate to these kids, or have these kids relate to us. It's incredible, because I remember whenever I speak, you can always see in the beginning you have the tough kids in the crowd, and all of a sudden their eyes start looking around like, wait a second, this guy's onto something. And they remember it. Granted, they may not act on it, but they remember it. So like I said, these guidelines are important. We're making this video for a reason. I've slipped, Noelle has slipped, Chris has slipped, but we just have to make sure that we try to lock it up as best we can, because it's very, very important for us to keep on moving forward, and we don't want a guidance counselor or a principal who hears us speak all of a sudden get a negative out of it, and it masks all the positives that we're trying to do.
So the people who start these meetings should screen interested young members in recovery. What we do is we just go and have a cup of coffee with someone and get to know them. Make sure that they have a sponsor and they're working a program, and get to know them, hear their story, ask them why they want to get involved in speaking in schools, why they want to get involved in your AIR group. If you're starting a new AIR group, you should have a meeting maybe 5 or 6 times a year, just to gather and review how your presentations are going in the school, review maybe what went wrong or stories that went really well, so we know what's going on and we can share experience and get better. And every time we go do an air presentation in a school, we never usually go alone. We usually go with at least 2 air members or 3 air members or more, because we want the students to hear 2 different stories, 2 different points of view, because we all come from different walks of life. So we want the students to hear, 2 different stories that maybe students can relate to the 2 different people. For presentations, you should dress business casual, not any cut-off shirts or ripped jeans. Jeans are okay too, but you want to make sure that you look clean cut, because you want the students to see that when you're in recovery, we clean up our lives.
Another thing, although we're all a part of different 12-step fellowships, AA, NA, whichever, it's important that we don't identify those, because personal anonymity is important at the level of press, radio, and films. And speaking to a group of children that might potentially be videotaped, that's press, We don't want to promote where we're from, because that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about alumni in recovery, and we're talking about our progression, our story, and our hope.
Finally, just want to let you know that AIR maintains a social media page on Facebook, and from time to time, given permission by the school, we'll do a live stream or a video recording of the various presentations that we do. Now, it's very important for you to understand that it's up to you to be filmed. It's not a requirement by AIR. You have the option. You don't have to choose to be filmed. But the only people that we film to are the live stream on the Facebook, or for promotional products like the video you're watching right now. We also like to maintain anonymity in regards to AIR, so we don't post any AIR-related stuff on our own personal pages. We save that for the AIR page. So say there's a photo taken of us or a video of a presentation we did at a high school. We're not going to take that video and post it on our own personal Facebook saying like, oh, look, I presented with AIR. We'll save that video for the AIR presentation to be posted on the AIR Facebook page.
So thank you for your time, and hopefully you'll start an AIR group near you.